Or as my friend Dale Carnegie once said, there's only one way under high heaven to get anybody to do anything, and that is by making the other person want to do it. That's his words back in 1937. Can you get somebody to do something by making them afraid not to do it? Absolutely. Can you intimidate and coerce somebody into doing something? Absolutely. But what he's saying is, when there's only one way under high heaven, there's one best way to do it, and that is to get somebody to want to do it. So there's a lot of actually scientific support for this argument that we need to rely on when we get into moments of doubt. And the good news is, in the 1800s and the 1900s, this science started to emerge to support the nice guy argument, especially in the area of what was known as behaviorism, where the study of psychology, how the human brain thinks, and the study of physiology, how the human body works, blended together under this notion of behaviorism in the early 1900s. So I'm not going to give you Sociology 101. You've been through all this recently or a long time ago, but we all remember classical conditioning from Pavlov. And these scientists started to do things like show that an external stimulus or stimuli can engender a response, a behavioral response. Thorndike, using cats, came up with the term behavior modification, and his law of effect, he showed and he proved that behaviors followed by good consequences are simply more likely to be repeated than those followed by bad consequences. And then, of course, we all know about Skinner, who came along and basically came along with this reinforcement theory and said that there's a thing called positive reinforcement, award and reward, negative reinforcement, withdrawing that, and then punishment, electrocuting the hell out of the rats. Well, the fact of the matter is that he showed that positive reinforcement was superior to punishment in getting the kind of results and behaviors that you wanted to get. So again, back to my friend Dale Carnegie, what his comment on Skinner's work, what Skinner showed was that an animal rewarded for good behavior will learn much more rapidly and retain what it learns far longer than an animal punished for bad behavior. And he editorialized by criticizing we don't make lasting changes. There's a guy, a biologist, who wrote a great book, if anyone's ever read it, called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. I don't know if anybody ever read that. His theory was that, animals live in the moment and humans don't. So humans, the complexity of the human brain has caused us to do so many great things, but it's also caused us to fall into these stressful, anxious, depressed, and other sort of downer moments. So, you think about a zebra. The reason he uses zebra is that, zebras are all in a big herd. They're out there grazing. A lion comes, and then a fight or flight kicks in. They take off. It grabs one, eats one, and the other zebras go, okay, not me. And they just go back to grazing. And they're cool with it because they live in the moment. So imagine humans as zebras, right? Humans go, oh my God, Harvey, did you see what happened to poor Fred? The lion ripped his head off. Took out his guts. It was disgusting, and I'm traumatized. I need my zebra Xanax. I can't graze under these conditions anymore. I just can't do it. And because we file these negative events away, we emote about them. We overprocess things, and so if you're telling me I can affect behavior, to affect motivation, to affect productivity, and make more money, then I'm cool with that. So on a parallel basis, all of this organizational behavior work started happening in the 1900s, and you recognize all of these names followed with reciprocal relationships. At the turn of the century, she was showing how organizational productivity can improve just through simple things like power sharing and participation. We know about Maslow, who said it's not about rats, cats, and dogs. It's about Freud's and Churchill's and Roosevelt's. There's a higher order of motivational triggers in there beyond just like, hey, do it or you're fired. No, there's fulfillment, there's human potential. And then, of course, there's McGregor when it comes to this whole nice guy assumption. His theory is very applicable because he was citing how, look, there are certain managers who approach it different ways. You remember Theory X and Theory Y, right? One manager goes in and says, I think they're all a bunch of bums. They need a good whipping, and I'm going to give it to them. Well, there's going to be a behavior reaction that way. The other guy goes in with a nice guy assumption and says, I'm going to assume the best, and therefore I'm going to treat him differently, and there's a reaction to that as well. So that's history, and that's rationale. Can we validate it in the real world? And the answer is there's way more evidence than I can put up on a slide in this presentation. More relevant, perhaps, is Professor Bauman, a marketing professor at NC State, who studied cross-functional group productivity. How many of us in the world of organization and business have been involved in a cross-functional group, right? And he studied it because he wanted to show team productivity, group productivity, I should say. And he showed that the team performance increased when members were treated with kindness, dignity, and respect. And his terms, not mine, he said essentially what I found was that when a team or a group had a nice guy leader or key influencer, the team members gelled together, communicated better, cooperated better, and therefore were able to be much more productive rather than the control group. And that was statistically validated in his controlled test. Weber from University of Toronto and Murigan from Northwestern studied in the middle of the group. They studied consistently cooperative actors. And these are people that were not leaders per se, but they're people who participate. And these are people who go into these situations and they kind of always agree with everything. Oh, that's a nice guy. Yeah, she's a really good employee, but she's kind of too much of a nice guy. And have this impression that, they don't contribute. They don't contribute at all. When in fact, what they found was that these cooperatives, these consistently cooperative actors, had a tremendous influence on the group. There was a contagiousness, a sort of a pay it forward kind of feeling. And it basically came from the whole notion, this ancient, genetically driven into our system notion of cooperation. We don't celebrate the nice guys. For some reason, our social psyche gets more interest and reward celebrating the nasty side of the equation. If you're a sports fan, you would know that this guy's name is Tony Dungy, recently retired coach of the Indianapolis Colts, a quintessential nice guy coach, okay? If you read anything about his biography, anywhere, just Google him, or please read his book, Quiet Strength, his first book. You will see a philosophy that was cause and effect, that he deemed was completely associated with his winning. Coming in first speaks for itself. One of the most successful coaches in NFL history. When he was there, he's the most successful active coach for 10 years. Now that he's retired, he will still go down. First African-American to win a Super Bowl, most successful coach in Colts history. The quintessential nice guy. His biography would say, his own words would say, when I went into a team, I went in making the assumption that all my players were there to learn. They were all there to learn and to get better and to compete because they all wanted to win. He made a nice guy assumption going right into his whole career. And then he went on to say, in his book and in lots of quotes that you can pick up, I also felt that every man deserved the right to be treated with dignity and respect. That these guys had earned it, and that, I believe that they would respond to that. For the handful that didn't, they didn't belong. They were bad for the group, and they were just pushed out of the group, basically. They didn't fit within that group. But for those who did respond, he just kept on. Tremendous self-control and self-discipline, no matter how bad the game would be going. And he said it was cause and effect. He didn't just do it to prove an ethical point, because guess what? There's no room for that in the NFL. You either win in a couple of years, or you're gone. He had to go from doubt all the way to conviction to believe that there was a cause and effect, that his methods were driving winning results. And if you read anybody who's ever coached with him, played for him, they will tell you the exact same thing. That's how they won, that's why they won, and they learned more about this guy, about winning in life, than from anybody that ever played for him. So that's a sportsman. I instantly understood what eBay was all about. And if you just go on their website or read a little bit about Pierre Omidyar, and I have this quote up here, it's really long, but it's well worth reading. This is his original mission statement, okay? This is what he said. He said when he started the company, this is really the way he looked at it. We believe people are basically good. We believe everyone has something to contribute. And we believe that an honest, open environment can bring out the best in people. He goes in with the assumption that everybody is good. He goes in with that primary assumption. We recognize and respect everyone as a unique individual, so he treats people with dignity, and he encourages everyone to treat others the way you want to be treated. He's citing the golden rule, the age-old concept of reciprocity, right in his business model, both for the business model itself, an exchange, a whole business model built on cooperation, and reciprocity, and trust, and then, of course, for his employee and workforce in his own cultural and workforce environment. He founded the company on the notion that people were basically good. He assumed it going in. All you got to do is give them a chance.